right, and we are back with another episode. And joining me today, I've got Ainsley Costello. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a busy weekend, but I'm glad to be here chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Awesome. All right, Ainsley, for starters, for those watching who may not know you, tell us about yourself and where you come from.
Yeah, so my name is Ainsley Costello. I'm a 17-year-old. I'm about to be 18 in a couple of weeks. That's why I paused for a second. I'm actually originally from Seattle, Washington, but I moved to Nashville in March of 2020. I know I thought musicians were supposed to have good timing, but you know what? We won't talk about that. But yeah, I'm originally from Seattle and we moved here in 2020 after a couple of years of kind of elbowing my parents in the shoulder, being like, hey, why don't we look at Nashville? Why don't we look at Nashville? Because I mean, it's funny. I started out in the country genre when I was still in Seattle because it was kind of a novelty there. Like there weren't a lot of people doing it there. So I really had like a big love and appreciation, and I still do, even though I've switched genres. I had a huge love and appreciation for the songwriting in the country community here in Nashville. And, you know, it's kind of ironic. I get to Nashville and I'm like, maybe I don't want to be a country artist, because I found out that some of my favorite bands like Paramore and Kings of Leon hail from Nashville, which is like total culture shock,
Right.
total moment for me. And so then over quarantine, I wrote about like, after we got here and got settled and got through the initial shockwave of 2020 and COVID, I started writing a bunch of songs. I got really hooked up with the amazing songwriting community here. I wrote about 150-ish songs over the past couple of years, and yeah, I mean it's just been great. I took a total 180 with my music over the past couple of years, like because we had time. I listened to a lot of music, found a lot of new stuff that I loved, and yeah, just am now in this cool pop rock kind of AAA vibe instead of the country that originally inspired me.
Awesome. And what's your favorite thing about Nashville? What has been your favorite thing?
So you know what? Like it's always been, at least for the past couple of years, it's kind of been hard to answer this because I feel like part of me like still feels like, do I really live in Nashville? Because like it's been so closed down. But
Yeah.
probably my favorite part of Nashville is probably the people I've met. I mean, I've met some amazing mentors who have become my friends now. And I love the community here of people who like are really willing to support like young artists like me and take a chance on like a fast talking 16-year-old when they meet me in a write for the first time.
Amazing. And so you started at a young age. How did it come? Are your parents into music as well, or is it kind of just something you fell in love with?
So my dad was a musician. My dad went to LA in the 90s doing the exact same thing that I'm doing here. So when I was born, like he took a corporate job, but he still played around the house. He was still in bands, and I fell in love with like the music that he played around the house. And he was always playing on the piano and the guitar or whatever. And so I definitely caught the bug from him. My mom's not musical. My mom is very creative in other ways, but my dad is definitely the root of music for me.
So he gets it. It's like we're going to
Yeah, he totally gets
that
it.
store. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. And at 15, you released an album called You Know I Am, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
And that was about like insecurities, or like kind of like the lyrics were towards insecurities of teens, correct? Like,
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. That album came out when I was 15. I wrote that album. Like it's so funny to see like how far I've come like in a songwriter perspective, because I wrote that entire album in my bedroom in Gig Harbor, Washington, which is outside of Seattle. And now I do like full on co-writes here in Nashville, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, because it was at that stage in my life of like a 13, 14-year-old writing songs in her bedroom, it was all like, I'm very self-conscious of the fact that I'm shorter than all of my friends, and I don't like this guy at school. I feel like I need to write a song about this. And it's like total like teen insecurity albums. And I just wanted to make girls my age especially feel seen and heard with that album.
so those are everything. Like you went through it all, obviously.
Oh yeah, went through it all.
Yeah, I was gonna say perfect. What is it hard? Like, has it been hard as a young musician, kind of going through the whole wave of this industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard no matter like if you're coming up at the age that I am, and honestly at any age in the music industry, because the music industry is a tough place to be. There's always going to be some challenges. I think in the past couple of years I've had a couple of added challenges. Like I got to Nashville in March of 2020, and to be honest, there were a couple of minutes there where I was like, oh my God, this is the worst mistake I've ever made. We just sold our house in Seattle. My parents quit their jobs to move me here. And now what is going on? But you know what? It's still been really great, because I think a lot of the challenges that like young women face in the music industry too, like, I mean, about a lot of like the things that you see pop up in the news, like they're definitely still present even as I come up today. But the challenges and the things that are tough are the things that are going to shape me in the future. So like, even though it can be tough sometimes, like I wouldn't take anything back.
Awesome. And that was going to be my next question. You talking about like, oh, this is the biggest mistake. Like, have you ever gone through that being a young musician, and what got you through it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so that was that big moment for me when we first moved to Nashville and Nashville shut down. Where I was like, oh my God, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. Because at the time I was like freshly 15 when we moved here. So I was like still very young and still had was going into Nashville being like, oh, I'm going to have the honeymoon phase with Nashville for like 5 or so years. Like it wore off pretty quickly because of COVID. But yeah, like with moving here, there was this moment of like, okay, this is the worst mistake I've ever made. But then as I started writing songs and I started finding the community here, that was the thing that really pulled me out of it. I was like, okay, just because we're all online does not mean that Music City is music devoid, which is kind of what I thought it was for a while. And I mean, live music definitely wasn't present anymore, but the music industry was still booming in 2020 and 2021, which was crazy. So I think writing and meeting the amount of people that I did was definitely the thing that got me through. Like, no, okay, this Nashville place, this could work.
Absolutely. And I think most artists went through something during lockdown. It was a lot of them learned, even they got better at social media because they had to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I don't know. I look at it as like it kind of sucked, obviously, because there was no live shows and it did hurt, select artists, but I think some good came from it. Some.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you correct me if I'm wrong, but were you also you were a part of The Voice and American Idol?
Yeah, I mean, I got to the first couple of rounds when I was still really young. I think I did both of those when I was like 14 and 15, around that age range. I got to the first round of like the first televised round of American Idol. I didn't make it, but that's totally cool. It was a great experience. And then with The Voice, I got through the first couple of rounds of producers. And because I was 14, they were like, hey, you're a little too young. You're not ready yet. But then again, it's one of those things that I wouldn't take back because it was a great experience that I know what to do for next time,
Absolutely. I would just be like, it's okay. Just put me in front of the judges.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us about your experience on those shows. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the thing that I'm always going to say about those shows is that it's a great experience no matter what your outcome is. Like it can be challenging when you're going to Oregon and your call time is 4 a.m. and it's 26 degrees and you're wearing a dress, and then you're the first person to like go in that day, and then your vocal cords are frozen and then you can't sing, and then it's a whole thing. That's a true story that actually happened. But yeah, I mean, with those, like, I think what I would say to other people if they're thinking about doing it, like, why not? That was definitely kind of my my parents kind of had to talk me into that thought process, because when I was about to go on to those shows or starting to get involved with them, I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't really want to be known as like that girl from American Idol or that girl from The Voice, but it's a great experience, and you're always going to learn something from those kinds of experiences, good or bad.
That's crazy. A lot of artists I'm starting to see that a lot from people I know, that they don't want to do these type of shows because exactly what you said, don't want to be known as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard line that you walk, because with those kinds of shows, yes, it is great experience, but then there is also this idea of like, oh, am I going to get trapped into like a huge scary contract with something like this? Or, oh, am I only going to be known as the girl from this show? And so, I mean, there's trade-offs like everything. But it was definitely a little moment in time for me where I mean, I'm still grateful that I got to do those things. So
Absolutely. And I mean, you do get those artists too. They'll get the exposure on the show and then they'll leave.
yeah, exactly.
You can bring their band in, or
Yeah,
now
and that's almost better than actually winning. Like that's what a lot of people, at least around town, have said, which I think is really cool and interesting.
absolutely. Okay. Awesome. Let's talk like influences and stuff. Do you have some specific influences towards songwriting and performing?
Oh my gosh, for sure. So, like a newfound influence that I've really kind of fell in love with over the past couple of years, that I mentioned earlier, are Paramore and Kings of Leon. I mean, I am definitely of the age group that like grew up like loving Taylor Swift, loving all the early 2010s pop stuff. But then I got to Nashville, and like I said earlier, I found out that some of my favorite bands came from Nashville, and then I was like, whoa, like there's a different kind of songwriting that you can do that's not like the carefully crafted hooky stuff, which is still like an art in its own. Like it's really valuable to learn how to do that. But then like you see songs like Use Somebody by Kings of Leon coming out here. And then so definitely like those two bands have been really influential for me. And there's another artist who I really, really love, who came out of Nashville. She started as a writer first, and then she's now doing the artist thing. Her name's Caitlin Smith. She's amazing. She's an incredible singer, songwriter. I've actually gotten to see her, like meet her a couple of times, which is amazing. I'm going to see her on my birthday in a couple of weeks, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, definitely, like I think something that not a lot of people expect is that like Nashville has a lot of music, and not just country music. Like there are so many different pockets of people that you can be inspired by. It's ridiculous. I feel like I'm always finding somebody who's like, oh, they're here too. Oh, they're here. Oh, they're here. Like, yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. And okay, now Kings of Leons and all that, I'm assuming those are type of artists that you like to listen to while driving, or what kind of music do you listen to while driving?
Oh man. So I got my license kind of late. I was a late bloomer to the driving game. But so my dad and we were in the car today, and I showed him this album that's been on repeat for me the past couple of weeks while I've been driving. I don't know how to say her name, and I really don't want to butcher it, but the album is called Pretend, and I think you say Sanabu C. That album, no skips, amazing. I've been really into Gang of Youths lately. They're great. Who else? I always feel like I have to look at my Spotify or like my music platform whenever somebody asks me this question. But yeah, that Snabusi album, absolutely no skips. Gang of Youths, they're awesome. Yeah.
I'm always curious because I know like back in the day I used to work with like a DJ company, and I used to ask DJs like, do you listen to the same music that you're like pumping in the club every Friday and Saturday? And a couple of them are like, no, I listen to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't expect it,
Yeah. Yeah, another one that I've been listening to that like I feel like people wouldn't expect. Like I'm also a musical theater kid at heart. I've been listening to the Tick Tick Boom soundtrack. Whew, so good.
Yeah. Awesome. And okay, so mostly life experiences, I'm assuming you get your inspiration from when songwriting?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've over the past couple of months, I've tried to start dipping my toe into the pool of like writing songs that are outside of me and my own little personal bubble.
Yep.
But yeah, for sure, that's where a lot of my songwriting has stemmed, especially in the last 2 years. Like I think I've started to become really honest in my songwriting about what I'm going through, and I think 2020 prompted that because that was the first time that I really experienced anxiety and depression. Like I had never experienced that before moving to Nashville, and that's not directly correlated with Nashville. It's a COVID thing. Yeah. But I'd never experienced that before 2020. And so then I started writing songs about anxiety and like trying to learn how to love yourself when it feels like there's not a lot to love. So I've definitely written from a very personal place, and I've tried to dig deeper, especially after getting to Nashville.
Absolutely. And there's going to be so many people that can relate to those type of songs. So it's good
Yeah.
that those come out of it, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's not good that you got to go through that, unfortunately, but you know,
You can
uh,
always take something away from it for sure.
absolutely, yeah. What you meeting all these songwriters and stuff like that? What's your favorite thing about the co-writing process?
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, there are so many people who I've become like genuine friends with through co-writing. Um, so there are a couple of like little trios who I write with, and now we're like always constantly texting each other because we've spent so much time writing together over the past couple of years that like, so it's really funny. I've started doing some touring lately, going to college shows and whatnot, and this is kind of off topic, but I will like segue back into it. So there's this trio who I write with. They're awesome. I've written a bunch of songs with them, and I've released a couple of songs with them. And one day in our write, we were talking about how like we were all joking about how one of my co-writers like really loves Bass Pro Shops. And so when you're driving past Memphis in Tennessee going into I don't remember what the next state over is. I think it's Arkansas, but don't check me on that. There's like this huge like triangle. It's not even a triangle. It's like a whole pyramid in Memphis of Bass Pro Shops. And so I texted it to that group and they were like, oh my gosh, it's the Louvre of Bass Pro Shops. And so that was really funny because I've become really good friends with those co-writers. But honestly, I think my favorite thing about co-writing is that I've become way more confident in myself as a songwriter, because I think songwriters, we're very like deep, like we're kind of insecure people and we're all like feeling things very hard all the time. And so knowing that like I have these people who I'm writing with who are maybe 3 times my age and who are like giving me props on my songwriting abilities, like that has made me like, oh my gosh, wow. Okay. Like I can actually do this. This is cool.
Absolutely. And I mean, I guess a big trust level comes with it too, hey?
Oh my gosh, for sure. Especially over the last year or so, I found with like when you're really honest with your co-writers about what you're going through, it always pays off. Like there have been a couple of ideas where like I've been like kind of shaky before like I hop onto the Zoom, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, guys, here's this idea. It's totally cool if you don't like it, but here's this idea about like me being compared to my idols, or here's this idea about the patriarchy and how it's not good. But I've always found that like when you're honest with yourself first, but then when you're honest with your co-writers about what you actually want to say, it pays off.
Really awesome. All right, let's chat about the new single Little Sister. Tell us
Yeah.
about it, how it all came together.
So like I said earlier, I'm so happy that this song is finally out in the world because I wrote it when I was 16. I'm almost 18 now. And so I've kept it very close to my heart over the past couple of years. And not a lot of people have listened to it. Only if like a select few had listened to it before we put it out. But it was the first song that I wrote in with Nashville Row Writers. And it was my first co-write, like my first Nashville co-write ever when I got here.
Wow.
So little 16-year-old me was like terrified about like going in and like me writing with these people and bearing my soul who I had no idea who they were. But so I wrote this song with Kelly McKay and Steve Smentek, who are like absolutely amazing angels of humans. We've written a bunch of songs together now, but this was the first song that we wrote together. And I remember this was another one that I went in really nervous to the write because of like the sincerity of the message of this song. So this was probably a song that I had been wanting to write for maybe 2 or 3 years up until the time that we actually wrote it. I tried to write it like 3 or 4 different times by myself and it just wasn't working. So when I found out that I had a co-write, I was like, okay, let me bring this idea to them. And people are always very confused when they hear that I wrote a song called Little Sister because I'm actually an only child. So the crux of this song is actually, and like I haven't really said this publicly before, so I'm like really excited to see how it goes over. I actually wrote this song about being compared to Taylor Swift. It's like a really like people are like, how did you get there? But so when I was younger, because like I said earlier, I was definitely of the generation that grew up loving Taylor, loving all that 2010s early pop stuff. So when I was younger, all I wanted to be when I started writing songs and playing out was the next Taylor Swift. And then I started to hear that. And then 7-year-old me inside was like, this is amazing. This is what success looks like. I'm going to make it. And then after a while, it was all that I started to hear. And so my sense of self and my sense of identity got really convoluted there for a minute. And to some extent, it still is, because I think we're always trying to figure out who we are in some aspect or another. But I was like, is this all people see me as? Is this all they want to see me as? Like, why? Like, I'm trying to act different. I'm trying to look different. And then why are people still saying this? And, I think I was like the only person in the world who like didn't want that title of the next Taylor Swift, because I realized like it's a huge compliment. But after a while, when it's all you start to hear, it's like, oh, it really kind of messes with you. But it's funny, I had the idea for the whole like big sister, little sister sibling relationship when my mom and I, so we had just moved into this house in 2020. Folklore had just come out. My mom and I were painting her office and we were listening to it. And I just said to my mom, I was like, I feel like she's just everybody's big sister that we all want to be exactly like, but who's almost this like, how do I say it? Like this like unattainable, perfect image of this big sister that we all put on this pedestal. And then I was like, oh, maybe that's how we write this song. And so I came in with this idea of being like, oh, like big sister, did you mean to make it hard on me? I love you, but I really want to be my own person. And it turned into this song that I'm really proud of. And it's I think it's really funny because this is also a song that has kind of presented more meanings of this is a song that's presented a few more meanings as I've gotten older and I've understood the world around me a little bit more, because I think definitely in 2020 and 2021, we were all in this like, we were all just like scrolling social media all day because we had nothing better to do. And we were like, oh, why does this person look perfectly happy while I'm down here in the dumps and I'm like sad and depressed? And then I think in that sense, big sister, who the narrator, who little sister is talking to this whole time, could be anybody. It could be a blood relative. It could be somebody you look up to, like I look up to Taylor, or it could be like the people who you see on social media who are like put up on pedestals, but it's this completely unattainable image of perfection that we can never attain.
Absolutely. And when I was totally going to ask if you had a sister, that was definitely going to be a question for sure. And it's because listening to some of the lyrics, I'm just like, okay, like is this actually happening, or is this but that's amazing. That's because listening to it and then hearing you say this, that's amazing to hear, and it sounds great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's really funny because this song was like such a headache because I tried to write it 3 or 4 different times. And then on the 4th try, I finally got it right with Kelly and Steve. Then we tried to do like 3 or 4 different versions of the production. And then the 3rd time we finally got it right. And then I tried to cut vocals for this song, like 3 or 4 different times. And then on the 4th time, we finally got it right. So like, it was like this just ongoing loop of like never ending little sister. Like, is it going to come out? Is it going to be good enough to come out? And so like, I'm so happy that it's out, but I'm relieved that it's kind of like done and over with and I can leave it in the past.
I mean, there's probably so many, artists have, and yourself, you have so many songs that aren't released and you may not release them for the next few years because it's not the right fit,
Exactly. Yeah. It might be the right fit for the next project, or it might be the right fit for where you were in your life 2 years ago. Like, I always just think that that's so interesting.
No, it's crazy. I know a guy who he had a song that was, I want to say almost like 6 years. He had it in the bank and then he was like, finally released it. And I was like, 6 years? I don't know if I could do that. I'd be like writing a song, be like, let's get this out. Like, let's get,
Exactly. I was on FaceTime with my friend the other day and I was telling her about it, and we were actually talking about another song that I have that I'm working on right now, that'll come out later this year. And she was like, wow, I remember when you first showed me that idea, like sometime last year. I was like, yeah, it's crazy how like long it takes. And then I was like, do you want to know how long it took Little Sister to come out? And now you all know the story to that, but
amazing. All right, Ainsley, you have any shows lined up people can look forward to?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited because I've started to do lots of college shows over the past couple of months, and there's a lot more on the calendar. I'm going to be playing. Oh, I'm not sure if I can talk about this yet. There's a show that I'm playing in a couple of weeks in North Carolina that I'm very excited about, that I can't say like too much else about. But that's a college show, and then in August and in August and September, that's really when it's going to pick up because it's the beginning of school season. I'm going to be doing lots of college shows then and there, but I'm sure that there's always going to be like little ones that pop up around here and there.
Awesome. And on Broadway, is there a lot of is there a lot of rock bars and stuff too, or is it all country down on Broadway?
So it's actually really funny. I love this because it feels like the roles are reversed. I've actually never played on Broadway, so when I get out and I network, I'm like, "What's your take on Broadway?" And for a really long time, I was under the impression that it was just all country. But then I was talking to somebody who occasionally plays in my band, and she was like, "Yeah, like honestly, it's not all country. I got the request to play Super Bass by Nicki Minaj on Broadway," and I'm like, "What?"
Interesting.
But it's cool because I've had a couple of people say like it's not all country. Like there are some bars that are more rock oriented. There are some that are more pop oriented. So I'm definitely like still kind of trying to understand the reins of Nashville and Broadway a little bit too, because like it's finally opening up after 2 years.
Yeah, and I know you're not of age to go in, but I mean sometimes they allow artists in to perform. You never know, right? Or at the
Yeah, you
show.
never know.
I didn't know if you had done anything like that or so, but yeah. Okay, awesome. All right, last thing, tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Ainsley Costello _official. My TikTok is just Ainsley Costello. And then I have like you'd think with like a weird name like mine, like you would be able to just get Ainsley Costello on each of them. Like they're all different. Like on Twitter, I'm like Ainsley Music 07. And then I don't even know what I am on Facebook. If you look up Ainsley Costello, it'll just be there.
No problem. What's your favorite platform?
You know, probably Instagram, but then again, like a lot of the stuff I've been doing lately is like really skewed towards TikTok, just because I think that's where a lot of people shifted in the pandemic. It's actually been really fun to see how Little Sister has been received on TikTok. I've gotten like a huge abundance of followers over the past couple of weeks because people have really been identifying with Little Sister, which is amazing and more than I could ever ask for. But like quick funny little side note, like people on TikTok are like, "So who's your sister? When are we getting a sister reveal?" And I'm like so afraid to put it out on social media, being like, "Oh, please don't think I'm a traitor, but I actually wrote this song about this." And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes over.
Interesting. Awesome. All right, guys, go grab her new single, Little Sister. And Ainsley, thanks so much for talking today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Absolutely. And stay in touch. If I'm in
Yeah,
Nashville,
definitely.
I'll try and come say hi if I can see you.
Yeah, for sure. Where are you based out of?
Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
My cousins live in Kamloops.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never been to Nashville, and I have so many friends moving there now for the music thing. So I'm like, I think I have a reason to actually go and finally see it.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Let me know when you come down here. I'd love to meet up in person.
That would be great. So let's definitely keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you too.
All right. Have a good one. See ya.
Yeah, you too.